Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We are back here on stage, and we have another amazing guest here for you. Her name is Anna Richter, and she is the 3D artist, illustrator, and art nerd, her words, not mine, at Coffee Stain Studios here in Skövde. Please welcome her up on stage.
All right. Let's see what do I have to say today. Hello and welcome to my talk. It's going to be about finding your path as a 3D artist in the industry of games. A bit about myself, as you all know. My name is Anna Richter, and I come from Tallinn, from Estonia. I love art in its many forms, and I've always loved playing games. You can see me playing Warcraft 2 here. But for a long time, I thought that the games are only made in USA, so I became a graphic designer at first. And eventually, I started finding more opportunities in Europe. And in 2013, I finally decided to follow my passion and enrolled in a course of 3D visual arts in the Netherlands. That was an amazing time, full of new things to learn and cool new people to meet. A bit about my experience so far. I have worked at Larian and on Divinity Original Sin 2. I worked at Starbreeze Studios, that was Overkill's The Walking Dead. And currently I'm working at Coffee Stain, where we're working on Satisfactory. But the scariest moment during my studies happened when it was time to look for an internship. And it just feels like there are so many opportunities, but yet the chances seem so low as the confidence is slipping away. And even though it's daunting to make those first few steps, it's just because it's your dream job and you care so much about it. And there's also someone out there who you don't know who's about to decide if you're good enough of an artist. But here we come to our main tool. The portfolio is the strongest statement in your favor and a depiction of your path as an artist so far. And it's totally in your hands to make it better and stronger and therefore increase the chances to get that position you want. So let's look at some tips that can help you with that, potentially. Okay, so make sure that your portfolio is easily accessible and presented in a clean way. Nowadays, ArtStation is a totally valid option, so it's just easy and reliable to post your work there and show it to the world. But keep in mind that the review usually lasts about a couple of minutes, so it's in your interest to reduce any friction and make it easy for the reviewer to see your work. But just in case, always keep an offline PDF version of your portfolio because you never know what kind of issues might arise if you're on an interview or you're with a reviewer and just showing your work on a festival or something. And from previous points comes another. First impression matters a lot, so focus on your visual presentation. Your portfolio is only going to be as good as the worst image on it, and that's just sad truth. So try not to include any school assignments or tutorial assignments because those will drag your quality down, and that's inevitable. If you're ready to be a hired professional, your portfolio should depict that. And try to focus on quality rather than quantity. Having 3 extraordinary pieces is always going to be way better than showing a lot of things that don't give justice to your skill. And therefore, it's not really worth it adding any unfinished work. And whenever you add some new stuff, maybe consider removing some of the old things if they no longer give justice to your current skill level. It's always great to show some thought process behind your work. So include some breakdowns like wireframes, texture sets, maybe some material networks. Demonstrate your knowledge of the subject and maybe include something in a description of like what inspired you to create it And when it comes to character art, it's really nice to include some good knowledge of anatomy, clothing, texturing, and good topology for an animator to potentially, make it animated. And if it's about environments, then it's worth showing both props and whole level environments. And it's better if you show it somewhere in the engine of your choice. And keep in mind that lighting can really set the right mood and help sell the scene. Quite often I get the question whenever I post my work, oh, what software did you use? And even though software is quite important, but it's not the main focus. Anyone can learn new software, especially if they have any previous experience or just basic understanding of a similar tool. The thing is, the software will keep changing, but something that will be yours forever is your understanding of like basic art fundamentals like color theory, composition, lighting, good anatomy, and just in general your visual library. Those are yours to keep forever. And just keep in mind that the things you can create are way more important than the tools that you use to create them. Consider adding your own original twist to the artwork. It's a great way to show that you can think creatively and that you can be independent in your decisions. It helps you to stand out from the crowd of other artists and hopefully making your work more impactful and memorable. Don't just go for the most generic imagery, like a typical AK-47 or a figure with a staff overlooking the landscape. We've seen them way too many times. And always, always credit the concept artist or any other collaboration that you were part of. And just all in all, have a clear hiring message. What is your preferred role? What are your interests? I should see that from your portfolio. And what is your dream job? Are you ready to do it for 5 days a week? What is your favorite style? Maybe it's realistic or stylized. Do you like to do some organic things or hard surface art? That really depends on you. And also, maybe you prefer working with fantasy things or sci-fi. That should be all clear from your portfolio. And make sure that whenever you're applying to the studio, that it's could potentially be interesting for them, because in the end you need to fit with what they're working on and what they expect from their own artists. So sometimes it's also useful to check portfolios of artists who already work there, and also check the games they're working on, because it's fair to note that a fantasy stylized portfolio isn't going to be a good fit for a studio that is focused on war-themed games that are very realistic. And it's time to apply, but here it's just going to be like food for thought, because I don't really have a perfect recipe for any of you. I can only give some tips, but just keep in mind that the road to land your first job or internship is going to be bumpy. So be ready for the challenge and don't give up easily. Be persistent and proactive. If you didn't get a reply, send a follow-up. And if you get rejected, that happens, but ask for feedback and maybe you can improve on that. And once you've improved your portfolio, just send it again and see, prove them that you can do it. And also sometimes no just means not at this time. Timing can be an essential factor in the hiring process. So rejection is not a critique of how bad you are, so don't take it personally. Learn from it and move on. You'll most likely get an art test. That's a very typical thing. Those can last something like from 1 day to 2 weeks. It really matters on the studio. But the common things that they check for are how well do you follow instructions within the set limits, and how great is your attention to detail? How clean are your UVs, topology, and how good is your texture quality? And if you're using texel density that is correct to that scene, because those things can really save or ruin your scene. And let's not forget about technical efficiency and optimization. How smart are you with using baked textures or tiled textures? If you're using any decals or maybe trim sheets, or maybe even some blend materials if you know how to set them up. And the thing is, sometimes our tests are made deliberately hard, but that's fine. It's just to see how well do you prioritize and how will you cut the corners. Because in the end, just don't stress about it. Plan your steps accordingly and focus on the most impactful parts that will make the most difference to your scene. And always send the results, even if you're not super happy and you didn't make everything that you wanted to. It's still great to show that you tried, and sometimes it's enough. And when you're applying, consider the differences between AAA and indie. Although it's fair to say that there is a so-called AA, which is kind of like a mid-sized studios, and they have those differences kind of blurred. And as a disclaimer, those following points are going to be my generalized opinion on a very broad subject. So it's just based on my experience so far. But when we talk about indie, we kind of expect to have generalized roles. So it's perfect if you're a person of many talents. And as an individual, you will have more independence and freedom, but then you also have way more responsibility. You can expect to have flat hierarchy without any mid-level management, and potentially you will have more creative freedom. Yay. With AAA comes narrow specialization, and that's pretty cool because you get, as a bonus, a lot of specialist colleagues that you can learn from, and potentially some new tech that you can try out. But then it also comes with a multi-leveled hierarchy, which includes a whole network of managers. And most likely it's going to be all about big titles with huge fan bases that you can brag about to your friends. And this is going to be kind of a realization that came to me only in time. But in the end, the team actually matters way more than the titles that you're working on. And the ambition might argue, and that's fine. Because if the shiny big titles on your CVs, all what matters to you, that's great. But do keep in mind that it's really hard to deal with if you're in a team that you don't feel like you're kind of fit in there, or if the company treats you poorly. It's very different to work on your favorite games that you like to play, but it's completely different story if you're working on them. And the love for the project is something you can gain in time and nurture as you get some fun challenges to work on. But what is impossible to change are people that you're working with and company culture and ethics. And the last chapter we're going to talk about is staying relevant in the industry. In the career path of a 3D artist, it's very important to stay in the loop and not let your skill set age. Just accept that learning is kind of your lifetime job now, because new software, new techniques and updates, new methods, they will keep coming, and they will inevitably make things different. Just in my 3 years of education, a lot of things changed in the industry. There was a huge leap to PBR materials, and Substance Painter and Designer became new staples, as well as 3D scanning in some studios became part of the pipeline. And also Unreal Engine 4 became the popular choice, and that was just the span of 3 years. And even though learning is really great and amazing, but don't just get tutorials because you think the act of getting them will make you a better artist. Try to reflect on your journey so far and adapt to your situation. Finding things to focus on can be a real challenge, especially in our modern world with so many resources for education. But it's not too bad, but it's just easy to get overwhelmed with all of those hot deals. Like on Udemy, there's always that thing with 90% off just today, but then tomorrow it's again up there. And just try to think for yourself. What is the next big thing that will make you a better artist in your own field? Pick your battles. And get inspired, not only just by games, because that can make your own art pretty stale. Look around, there are so many other resources and subjects of an interest. Do a crazy research like me on tribal masks. Scavenge for new bits of information from maybe some things that are outside of games industry or even art. And that will inspire you and help you be more creative and build your visual library. One thing is also important is understand the workflow of your colleagues. You don't have to be the best programmer and you don't have to know everything about game design. But just knowing what they do day by day will make your work more efficient and just you will become a better and more valuable team member. And this in turn will help your team to work more seamlessly and consider each other's needs. Seek, give, and process your feedback. We cannot evaluate our work adequately. That's just not the case. You need the pair of fresh eyes to help you find your mistakes and progress. Critique can sometimes be heartbreaking, but never take it personal. Just learn from it and move on, because you know your own value and how many hours you put in your work. And that's what matters in the end. And another thing is that giving feedback is also an amazing thing, because you can learn, you can develop your own creative thinking and your good eye for detail, which will help in your own work. So it's kind of all interconnected. Be a decent human being and stay respectful. Your rival at school or your enemy on social media might end up being your colleague, or even worse, your boss. So don't let the petty squabble lower your chances in this small industry that is represented by a tight network of people where everyone just keeps a list of people who they would never want to work with. And be a proactive part of the art community. Post your work online and check what others are up to. Visit talks and art festivals, just like you're doing now. Listen to GDC presentations and podcasts with your fellow game devs. And also maybe participate in some art challenges, because that will help you to see what others are up to and also increase your own skill. And never, ever, ever underestimate your mental health. You are not an art-making machine. We're all human beings who have our own needs, and we just need some rest for the benefit of our mind and body. It's really hard to succeed on any of the points I mentioned if you just don't get enough rest, because then you can't function properly. And it's really okay to take an off day. And if you're feeling down, just take a step back, lessen the pressure and regain your momentum. And that will help you massively. And I just wanted to thank you all for being present and listening to what I have to say today. And here are some resources that helped me along the way to make this talk as well. I've only had just 20 minutes to cover all the basics, but these are all the broad subjects. So if you want a deeper dive, just feel free to explore those. There's a QR code. It's going to be like a document that has the same info and more. It has all the portfolio tips I gave and some art podcast links. So yeah, just feel free to explore more. And these are my social media over there. You can just drop a message and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And yeah, that's it. Take care and good luck.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was really great. I felt like I learned a lot, and I've been working with this for a while. We have about 4 minutes for questions. So if you have anything, please raise your hand. If you are on Discord, you can also type your questions there, and I will see it up on the screen there and ask it to Anna. What questions do you have for Anna here in the audience? Okay, I see you're a little bit shy, so I can kick it off. Do you feel like you talked about a lot about how to get into the industry and so on as a student, but do you feel like you have made any how did you learn this? Did you make mistakes that you felt like you wished you hadn't had, or could you share something that you wished you would have done differently back when you?
Well, as many students, I just had a huge list of companies that I want to apply to just because I wanted anything. And that's something I realized, that in the end, it really matters for you which company do you really want to work for, and just strive for that, because sometimes getting just anything can be, not so pleasant for yourself. And in the end, you're selling your own time as well. So something that you don't enjoy doing might end up just ruining your whole, just bringing you into depression. That happened to me as well. So yeah, just try to focus on the things you really want from it. That's something I learned only with experience.
Definitely. We have a question over here.
How would you recommend to present your portfolio to Alla frågor måste ta sin mikrofon.
Yeah, so you say your question, I will repeat the questions in the hair industry.
How would you present your portfolio to a potential employer? Would you recommend creating a website or something like that? What would you recommend?
So the question is, how would you present your portfolio to the potential employer? Would you make a website or something similar?
Like I mentioned before, ArtStation is totally valid. It's a really great source, and everyone knows how to use it, and it's kind of a staple in the industry right now. But yeah, if you feel confident, make your own portfolio, because then you can control how you present your stuff, especially if it's animation, because then you can include videos and everything. But if you feel not so confident with that, I wouldn't go for it, because it should be very accessible for anyone who picks it up, because they only have few minutes, because they have a whole list of people they're checking.
Cool. We have a question from Discord, I believe it is. Do you have any tips for game programmers?
Oof, that's a tough one. If any game programmers want the tips, they can message me, and I'll just ask my colleagues around, because I'm not a programmer myself, so I'm not really sure how it goes for programmers. But I know everything about artists.
Yeah, I mean, you can
maybe
definitely
level design.
You can definitely build a portfolio as well as a programmer, but
but quite often with programmers, I know that they show some snippets of their work, like how they make their code, and they also have way more discussions on the interview with whoever is going to be your supervisor or anything, because they just want to know if your mindset is there to fit the team, and also how you work, your methods.
Yeah, and a work sample is very likely as well.
Yeah.
We don't have any more time for questions, so thank you so much. Let's give Anna another hand. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.